Last week, I was going through my Apple Intelligence setting and I found a log that I never noticed before. The log needs to be enabled and it's called Apple Intelligence Reporting. What it does is, every time you request something to your phone and your phone is unable to process that request, it asks for external server for help. And I was pretty shocked by that because Apple sells privacy. It's not a feature, it's a product. It's on billboards, it's on keynotes, and that's why people pay the Apple tax. Heck, I pay the Apple tax. But the moment your iPhone requires a bigger AI model to process your request, the data has to leave your iPhone. Apple's promise says you shouldn't worry. And in their own words, the data is not accessible to anyone other than the user, not even Apple. Your data stays yours. And that's why so many people, millions of people believe Apple with their messages, photos, health data, location. So I had 3 questions in mind. First, where does this data go? Second, what happens when I enable ChatGPT? Is Apple able to extend the same privacy controls to ChatGPT? And third, what is the new news about Apple building AI models with the help of Google Gemini technology? And this is what I wanted to know. I followed the data and what I found, I was pretty surprised. Now, there are 2 things worth understanding before we go further. First, how your phone decides what to send. Second, what happens when it's sent. Now, your iPhone tries to handle everything inside your device. A model in your phone decides if it can answer your request or not. Most of the data never leaves your phone, and Apple says that it only sends the relevant piece of data that's required for external processing outside of your device. Rest, everything is handled in your phone. Now, the data that is being sent outside your iPhone goes to what Apple built, and it's called private cloud compute. And for easier conversations, let's call it Apple's vault. Now, here is the claim in full. Apple calls this the most advanced security architecture ever deployed for cloud AI at scale. And the promise underneath it: your data gets used to answer your request, never stored and not accessible to anyone other than you, not even Apple. Now read that again, not even Apple. That's a very big statement coming from a tech company. So the honest move right now is not to roll your eyes, but to go and check if Apple's vault holds up to the promise. It mostly can, and let me show you how. Now think of private cloud compute like a vault sealed so tight that even Apple can't get in. Imagine you ask Apple's intelligence to rewrite an email for you. The first thing your iPhone does is ask itself, can it handle it on the device? If the answer is yes, your data never leaves your iPhone. But if the request needs a much larger AI model, it goes to the Apple's vault. And now here is the clever part. Before iPhone sends any single word of your email to the vault, it doesn't just trust it. It asks it to prove its identity. In return, the vault responds with a cryptographic proof, a digital ID fingerprint that identifies the exact software running on that server. Your iPhone then checks that fingerprint against a public list published by Apple. That list contains every approved version of the software that's allowed to run inside the vault. Now, why? Because security researchers can inspect those software images independently, so Apple can't secretly swap in different code without it being detectable. Now, if the fingerprint matches, your iPhone will send the data to the vault. If it doesn't, it will just refuse. Now, only after that verification is completed, iPhone will encrypt your request directly to that one verified vault and send it over a secure connection. Apple's own front door systems, the load balancers, the route, the traffic, they can't read what's inside the request. Now, inside the vault, the AI will process your request, create an answer for you, and send it back to your iPhone. Now, Apple says your request isn't stored, the encryption keys used for that session are destroyed, so there are no persistent logs of your requests, no shell for administrators to log into, and the system is designed so that even Apple can't simply peek inside while your request is being processed. Now, that's what makes private cloud compute different. Now, Apple isn't asking you to blindly trust its servers, it is designed security and privacy first. So, if the vault holds its promise, where is the actual problem? It's not the vault, it's everything sitting outside it. Now, 2 things sit outside the vault, and this is where the promise gets thinner. First, the clerk. Remember the Apple Intelligence report I showed you in the beginning of the video? It shows that the request went out, but it doesn't show why did the iPhone decide to send that particular request out. I mean, the vault is airtight, but the data being sent to the vault is still a judgment call, and you can't fully audit the clerk. Now, second, the handoff. Now, this is the one to remember. The vault only protects what's happening inside Apple. But the moment Siri decides to hand off your request to ChatGPT, yes, OpenAI, the same OpenAI Apple is suing for corporate trade secret theft. That request walks entirely outside of Apple's building into a completely different building down the street. Apple's lock, Apple's vault, Apple's sealed images don't extend to OpenAI's servers. And Apple discloses this on their privacy page. Instead, you get OpenAI's rules. If you use without an account, OpenAI is required to process your request and not store anything. But if you're signed into OpenAI account, OpenAI can use your data, store it, and use it to train its models. So the sentence most people are carrying around, that my iPhone will keep my data private, turns into something else. My iPhone keeps my data private, except the clerk who decides to send what it wants, and except for anything that's handed to OpenAI. And this is a very different sentence than the one on the billboard. And then the vault itself changed shape. In January of 2026, Apple and Google jointly confirmed that Apple's next generation of AI models would run on Google's Gemini technology. In June, Apple unveiled the new Siri built on that foundation. And notice what's strange, Apple's own announcement of its own new Siri never says the word Google. Not once. Mac rumors filled in what the press release left out. The model underneath is indeed developed by Gemini's technology. That release leaves out something else as well. Apple tried to run the new model inside its own vault on its own silicon, but it was too slow for a voice assistant people actually want to use. So the heaviest requests get routed to Google's data center running on NVIDIA's chips. Now you're probably thinking, so much for Apple's privacy claims, they just handed your data off to some other company's servers. That was my first reaction too. But here's what actually surprised me. Google just didn't hand off this data and hope for the best. Instead of trusting one company's hardware, Apple stacked 3 separate security systems on top of each other. NVIDIA's own system called confidential computing on the graphics chips, Intel's own system called TDX on the processors, and Google's Titan's chip, its hardware root of trust, underneath all of it. 3 separate padlocks with 3 different companies. So even if any single one of them makes a mistake, the other 2 will still hold the door shut. No one company gets to be the single point of failure. Apple even built a cryptographic ledger, a master inventory list, so that before your phone sends a single request, its system checks the exact identity of the physical hardware sitting in Google's data center. Now, that's not the behavior of a company that fully trusts its landlord. One honest caveat, and it matters, this is brand new, announced the same day as the new Siri. Apple says every piece of software running on that infrastructure will eventually be published for outside security inspection, the same way the original vault was. But nobody outside Apple has actually gone in and checked yet. And now, not because Apple didn't build a way to verify it, just because it's brand new, nobody's had the chance yet. So here's where this lands, and it's not the takedown a headline would want. What I want you to walk away with isn't a verdict, it's a map. Now on the device, your data is private. Inside the original vault, the private compute cloud, your data is protected, checked, and verified by outside researchers today. Inside the new vault on Google's hardware, Apple is building it to the same verification standards. It's not tested yet. But with ChatGPT, it's a different company's rules, and if you're signed in, your data can be used to train their models. So the next time an ad tells you that your phone is private, you'll know the one question worth asking: where does your data actually go? Now that's the point of this whole channel, not to hype technology, not to scare you about it either, just to help you understand how it actually works. Now I run production infrastructure for a living, that's why I keep checking claims like this one. If you want me to cover some specific topic, please do let me know in the comments. Please like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next one.